Hey, welcome back. Today's video is going to be, we're going to draw and paint a really cute little angel holding a heart, and we're going to paint with watercolor. Here, this is what it looks like. There we go. This is what she looks like. Isn't she cute? This is going to be a really fun holiday project we're going to work on together. And I can't hold her right while I talk. But anyway, it's going to be a really quick little 2-minute drawing thing to get her drawn onto some watercolor paper. Or, you know, I'm using watercolor. If you want to use acrylics and do this on a canvas, I guess you probably could. But then I'm going to go back in and add markers and gel pens and stuff like that, add some extra details, and make it kind of a mixed media project. So there's that. Also, I already did this recording, and I recorded it, and somehow or other the audio part of it got messed up. So I'm going to now be doing a voiceover to go with the video I already recorded. So don't look for my lips to be matching the words. They probably won't. Don't be confused. But anyhow, let's jump right into it. And then in the description below and also at the end of the video, I'll give you some more information on stuff that I have going on and more fun ways we can paint together and create art together. So let's get into the video, and I'll see you again at the end. So here you can see I've got my sketchbook out, and I've been playing around with this design a little bit already, and I'm going to just show you what I do. I just usually open up to a clean page in my sketchbook and start drawing and creating a picture or a design, and working on it to get it to where I've got everything in it that's like I like it, and that it'll work good in my picture. So that's what I'm doing here, and I recommend you try to do that as well. Just keep some scratch paper on hand, and then when you get an idea, you can just jot it down real quick in your sketchbook, and then you can come back later and tweak it a little bit and work out things until you get a picture that you really like, and then you can transfer it to your paper and paint it. So I'm drawing and working out how I want the hair on my angel to go, and then I've got to work out how I want the body to go. And looking at that one, I think I decided it's a little wider than I would like it, because I'm going to need to put wings on her, so I don't want it to be too wide. So I'm just going to make that much more narrow. And what this design involves actually is a body that's just kind of like a cylinder with a big heart right in front of it. And then I add wings onto the side of that, and it couldn't really be any easier to do. And also, I like the heart to have one side a little bit higher than the other, and the same thing for the wings. I don't really like them to both be exactly matching and symmetrical. I prefer an asymmetrical appearance because I just like the look of that better. But that's what I'm doing here. Still just kind of working out how much lines and curves and curls and waves do I want in the hair, and all that kind of stuff. And normally you don't want too much lines on your watercolor paper, but this is a slightly different thing because this is more of a, I don't really know what to call it, but it's just a fun little, almost a craft painting. But anyway, once I've got my design figured out, then I pull my watercolor paper over, and I'm gonna start drawing this on here. Now she starts with a circle. This is where you can draw with me right now if you want to. She starts with a circle for the head, and then right in the middle of that circle put a couple of dots for the eyes, and then start putting some big curly hair on her. And I don't need to get the hair the whole way completed, but just kind of the main gist of where it's going to go. Get that kind of in position, and then I'll go ahead and put the body on her. Except I got to tweak this face just a little bit here. Get the shape of that just like I want it before I move on. And then I put that body on there, remembering not to get it too wide. And then put the heart in, make it a big heart right in front of her, and it goes all the way out to the sides of where her body will be. And then I just continue those lines right straight down, put a curve on the bottom of it so it looks like a cylinder sitting there, and then add the wings on each side. And I make the wings a little bit different size and height, just like the heart, and then I make the bottoms of them different because, again, like I said, I just like asymmetrical. Now I'm going to clean up some excess lines, and I need to start thinking about the background of her. But let me put a few more lines on this hair right here because I want to have that a little bit more well defined than normal, because I am going to put lines over that with pen at the end, and I want to have some segments defined here so that I can paint them different colors of yellow to give her hair some interest. Now for the background, she's maybe, I'm going to just say she's standing in a street corner, sharing her peace and love and encouraging people to be kind to one another. And so I'm going to put like a street lamp here, and she hangs out with the stars, so I'm going to put stars for the lights on my street light. And then I'll probably enhance that a little bit when I'm done painting it. But there we go, we have just like a street lamp or pole, and that's enough drawing, and I can finish the rest of whatever I want to put in there with the paintbrush. But that gets a general idea of something for the background. Now I'm going to pull out a variety of flat and round brushes so that I will have them handy for when I start to paint. And then I've got my paint palette, as you can see, and I've got some paper towels and a container of water, and I'm about ready to start working on this piece. Now the first thing I'm going to do, I have to decide how I'm going to approach it, and in thinking about this I decided to paint the background first, because then I can kind of fill in. I don't have to be careful when like if I paint the angel first and paint her hair, for example, then I have to be too careful painting the background around the hair I've got painted on there. Whereas if I paint the background first, then I can kind of fill in a little bit with the hair if I don't get the background painted just exactly perfect. And so that gives me a little bit of more freedom there. So I'm going to go ahead and do the background first, and I start with getting the whole paper wet with clean water, because I'm going to do a wet and wet background and have it a mixture of colors that I'm going to mix together right there on the paper, because I don't want to have a solid color background. I don't think that's as interesting as having some variety of color in the background. But as you can see here, you can look and see that sheen on my paper. That's where I'm getting the paper wet. And I'm not getting the paper wet where the angel is and where the stars are, because I do not want the background to run into those areas. So I'm just painting with water all over everywhere that the background color will go. And I can paint right up to the edge of the stars and right up to the hair, right up to the edge of the wings. And of course it doesn't matter if I paint over the lamppost lines, because I'm going to paint those using a technique that'll be allowed to do that. Now, one thing I want to call to your attention, you don't want big puddles of water laying on your paper. If you pick your paper up and tilt it and your water runs, you've probably got too much and you need to spread that out a little more so that you just can see a sheen on the paper, and it looks like it's wet, but not that there's water running all over the page. That would be too much if you have it puddling up and running all over the page. I've just about got everything wet real good here. Now I'm going to just start putting some real dark, pretty color in. I've got some purpley violet color, and then I'm going to put in some phthalo blue, and I've got some ultramarine blue, and I've got some I think it's perylene violet. It might be perylene maroon. No, I think it's perylene violet mixed with some Winsor violet and that phthalo blue, and I'm just putting segments of color on the paper where it's wet and it's kind of running and mixing together, because I put some other color right beside it, and the colors just run together real nicely, and I don't have to use my paintbrush and make big swipes back and forth to blend the colors together, because since the paper was good and wet, the colors run together all on their own and mingle right there on the paper, and I get some really good color variations going on in my background, which makes it interesting and pretty. And that is the goal. And I'm going to pull this right down to about in the area of where she's standing and stop there, because I'm going to put a different color across the bottom so that she doesn't look like she's just floating in space, because that's not what I want this one to look like. And then I'm going to draw some of that dark blue paint right up along the area where my lamppost would be, just to get that started happening. Then I want this paint to go right up under the wing, right to the side of her there. And now I think I'm going to put some dark red on the bottom area, because I don't really have red in the background. So that seems like it'd be a good color to go across the bottom here. And then it kind of blends with that phthalo blue on the one side and gets a real pretty shadow area looking or happening there. Now I want to wash all that color out of my brush, and I need to think about where I'm going to paint next. If I'm painted on the wings next while the background is all wet, so you can see the sheen there on my paint. See, it's really wet. If I painted yellow or painted these other areas that are touching the wet background area, that paint is going to run together and blend all together, and I won't have any distinctive line between the angel and the background. So I don't want to paint there yet. I need to let that background get dry. So I'm going to pick up some bright red, I think, and paint the heart first after I get a drink and eat a bite of my cookie. I have Christmas cookies out right now and some water and some hot tea, because this is a holiday painting, so I'm having holiday snacks while I work. So now let's see. Let's get this smallish brush, and I'm going to do the stars first. I forgot I did that. So stars first, because it won't hurt much if those do run a little bit into the background. It'll just maybe give them a bit of a glow. But my background is not really runny wet. It's just enough damp that these stars may just sink right in there and maybe get a little bit of a soft edge. So I'm putting some yellow all over this star, and you notice I did not get the paper wet first, and then I touch in a little bit of a red orange into that wet yellow paint just to give it some variation in color, keep it interesting. Now I'm going to paint yellow, and then the same, touch a little orange red into it on the other star, and those look perfect. I like them. Now I'm rinsing that brush, and I am going to go ahead and paint the heart, because the background part is still wet, so I don't want to paint the outer parts yet. So I'm going for the heart because none of the edges of the heart are bumping into the wet edges of the background. So I've got a nice bright magenta on my brush right here, and I'm putting some of that in on this side, and I got a really good strong color. And now I'm going to rinse that off there and get some of a Scarlet Lake or a little bit more orangey red color on my brush, because I just don't want to have everything the same color. Now I've got a nice Perylene Violet color here that is going to look real good. Now I'm going to put water, clean water on my brush and run it back and forth between those two colors just to kind of fill in the gap where there was no paint. And I didn't like it quite as well as I thought it would, so I just touched in a little bit extra color. And while the paint is still good and wet, those colors will just lay there and kind of run together and melt together on my paper and dry, and there'll be a little bit of color shifting going on, and that'll look great. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this, some of this puddle that's laying around on my palette, and come up with a skin tone for her face. And I'm going to paint a very light skin tone on her face. And then I touch a little bit more of a purple color into that same paint that I had, and touch just the one side of her face, and that puts that side in shadow and gives a little bit of form and shape to her face. But I'm not going to really put a whole lot of detail on there. Oops, I got a bit of eraser dirt laying there, so let me just pick that off before that dries in the paint and makes a spot. But anyway, so I'm not putting very much detail in her face, and I don't want to add any more detail now while the paint I just put on there for her face is wet. So I'm letting that dry before I do any more details, and instead of working on that, now I've got a flat brush that I've got clean water on, and I'm going to lift a little paint out along the line where my lamppost arm goes up and then over to the star. So I'm going to lift out paint there a little bit so that that'll be a light color, because it'll need to be a light color against the dark a little bit. I'll add some dark paint to it too later, but right now I'm just establishing where that line is and lifting up some of the color so that I can maybe have a highlight on the pole. Or what all, I'm not exactly sure, but this, I know this is where we want to start. Lift some paint out and create that light pole or lamp post, whatever we're calling it. And this magenta color does not want to lift very well, but that's okay because we can use dark paint for that part. So that's pretty good for that. Now I think I'm going to put a pattern using the lift technique. I'm going to put a pattern in the heart. I'm just going to put some lines in there that look like a checked or plaid pattern. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but let's just get going on it. So I'm going to start with lifting paint in nice straight lines on here. And remember, the lift technique is you just get your paintbrush wet with clean water and you draw it right down along in a straight line, and then you wipe off the paint that you picked up off there. Now these lines do not necessarily need to be exactly the same distance apart, and it's fine if they're not. You just do want to keep them straight. And then I'm going to turn the board around and make the lines crossing the other direction, creating a nice pattern here on this heart.
And if it doesn't all lift exactly the same degree, that's okay. Don't worry about that at all. It adds character and interest and makes it more appealing, more interesting when it's not all exactly the same. So I'm just lifting paint as it lifts, and with the areas that don't lift 100% or don't lift as much as the other area doesn't create any problem at all. I like it like that. And then if you drag paint out of bounds any at all, you just clean that up a little bit with your clean paintbrush. And you see I'm wiping the paint off. As I pick paint up from here, I can wipe it off on my paper towel and then rinse the brush a little bit more to get more clean water on it. Pick up some more paint and wipe it off on the paper towel. And you just keep doing that till you're happy with the result. I think I like that. My background is still kind of damp. I can tell that from touching the backs of my hands to it, and it still feels cold and damp. That means it's a little too wet and you need to let it dry some more, because if you paint the angel wings again right up against the wet paint, it will spread into the background color, and we don't want that. So I'm going to let that go. My face is still drying up there, so I need to let that stay a little bit more. These really heavily painted areas up here are still really pretty damp, so I need to let those continue to dry. Now I'm going to mix up some real pretty bright blue. It's a much lighter blue than the background. The blue I'm using here is a Verditer blue, and since I want it to be clean and pretty, I'm going to just clean off a spot of my palette here so my color stays clean. And I think I will put a little bit of this cobalt turquoise in there. It's a very Florida-ish color. I like it a lot. It looks kind of teal, I guess. But I'm going to mix that in with that light blue, and I have a perfect color for the body of her, or what might, I guess, be her dress or gown or robe or whatever it is my angel is wearing here. But I like this color, so I'm going to just start painting that in to where I've drawn the body of her, that cylinder shape. This is really such an easy pattern or design to do, but it looks real cute when you're done. Now I got a little smidgen of the red was a little bit wet and got into that blue, but as long as it's only a teeny tiny bit, it actually looks pretty like that. So I'm not going to worry if I got a little bit of that red in there on the one side. And I'm going to add extra water to loosen up the blue a little bit, because I don't want my blue paint to all be exactly the same value all the way down. So I'm going to add some more paint on this side and darken it up a little bit over here. And I like that. And now while that is still mostly damp, I'm going to mix up a really bright, pretty green color. I've got some emerald green, and I put some yellow into it, some bright lemony yellow into it. And I'm going to use this green on this brush sort of the same way I would use clean water to do a lifting technique. And instead of lifting, I'm going to just sort of shove some of that blue aside and replace it with this green paint that I just mixed up. It's not exactly the same as if I lifted it back to white and then put the green on top of it, but it's very close, and it makes a really nice appearance to it. And remember, don't get your green exactly the same strength all the way up. Put some green squares on there, a little bit more diluted paint, or rub a little of the blue off, and don't put too much green on it, and then put plenty on the next square, and just kind of give it some variety so that it stays interesting and pretty. But You can see here I'm just putting the green in kind of over top of the blue, but I did it while the blue is still wet enough that I can actually push the blue aside and lay that green down there all in one step here by putting the green on my paintbrush and going into the blue while it's still easily moved. And I'm not worrying too much if my pattern works out exactly right. You can just guesstimate on it, on how the pattern would go behind the heart and where it would come out. Just guess. Don't worry about it too much. And in fact, you don't even have to put any green up in the top area if you don't want to, or any extra squares. I'm definitely going to paint this again a few more times because I like it, and I've already got some more ideas just watching this recording again. I see some more ideas of things I want to try. Now I'm going to just start putting yellow in her hair, and I'm going to paint all of it my lightest yellow color. And then once I've got that paint all over all of the whole hair area, then I can go back and get some darker yellow or some stronger paint and put that in some areas, but not all of them. Just start picking and choosing, and then I'll get some of the gold color. Excuse me. I'll pick up some of my gold color and put that in some of those areas that I drew in. And this is where, when I put all those lines in and drew sections of waves and curls, this is where that comes in. I will just take this darker golden yellow and put it in some of those sections, but not all of them. I'm keeping the darker color closer to her face and neck, just because that seems like that's how it would look. And I could have stopped right there, but I didn't. I mixed some red orange into the yellow and got some orangey color going, so I can put some bright, I don't know, maybe she's a strawberry blonde, I'm not sure. But I'm going to put some brighter orangey highlights in there. Now I've got a little bit of one of my dark purple colors, and I'm going to touch it in her eyes, although it's not coming out dark enough, so I'm going to go ahead and go with a blue for that. A really dark little tiny dot on each of those dots we put in the center of the circle, and that's her eyes. I don't want to use black for that because it could come out looking like googly eyes, like they're just pasted on, and that isn't pretty. At least I don't think it is. So I don't use black. I use a dark purple or dark blue. Now I'm going to do a little bit of extra shading with some very light burnt sienna, a very light diluted mix of that, and just shade around her face a little bit, under the chin area, and kind of under the bangs up on her forehead. And you don't have to do a whole lot, but just a little bit, just to kind of help add a bit of shape and form up around her head. Now I'm gonna do these wings by putting some yellow on my flat brush and then just drawing straight lines down there, so her wings are going to come out striped, and I leave a space between each line and just use the flat edge of the bristles and just draw that line easily and fill it with stripes. And then I'm going to take a darker color, some of my yellow ochre and mix it in with that quinacridone gold and make a darker stripe and just draw lines between the yellow lines that I drew or that I painted on. And the way this worked out, I actually had a little bit of white showing through between the two different shades of yellow, the yellow and the gold colors. There was some white in there, and I think it came out pretty. This thing is kind of all about pattern, not really going for realism here. That's why I told you in the beginning that it was going to be kind of a crafty sort of a painting. Maybe whimsy or something like that would be, like this is a whimsical painting. I guess that's a good word for it. It's a whimsical design instead of realistic, obviously. Now I've got some more dark color that I just mixed up there. I got some purple and blue and threw a little red in it, some of the colors that I have used in the painting, and I mixed up a real dark color because again I don't like to use black straight out of the tube. So I made this dark color and I'm just drawing on the lines for the lamppost, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and put my initials on here for a signature. And that's good enough for the watercolor part. So now I'm going to take my gel pen and just show you real quick how with a white gel pen I can add some highlights, and I'm just going to put a few highlights on this lamppost. And one of the things about the gel pen is you draw the stuff on there and it doesn't show up right away, but as it dries it gets brighter and brighter. So you kind of have to remember where you put something, since you're not going to see it right immediately. But I'm going to just touch a few little spots here where it seems like it'd be good to have a bit of a white highlight. And because we've been painting for a little while and the background has had time to dry, it is dry enough. Well, it's the whole way dry, so I'm going to go ahead and peel the tape off. If you take your tape off too soon before your paper's the whole way dry, it won't dry laying nice and flat. So I always like to let it dry completely before I peel that tape off and take it off the board. But this one is dry, so I'm going to go ahead and take it off the board and show you that. And now it's time to have another bite of cookie.
Okay, that's the watercolor part finished. Now I'm going to show you what I did to finish it up. I don't have a recording of it, but I can show you exactly what I did using markers, gel pens, and really you can use pencils, colored pencils, anything you want to go over top of this once your watercolor is dry. So let's switch down to my zoomed in shot here and I'll show you. I used these white gel pens to add these little swirls and dots to kind of put some like star shaped things, and then I highlighted a few things. I even put a little bit of highlight right over here where I don't think I got it light enough with the lifting technique, and I highlighted my signature, which on this piece is just my initials. But I used those to do things there, and I used these Micron technical pens. They come in all different thicknesses or you know, fine points. You can get them really small points and slightly larger points, and then there's all these other kinds of pencils and markers, I mean, and you can just go to any of your art supply store you want to go to and find all kinds of these things. And you can even also use colored Sharpies if you want to. Sharpies come in all kinds of fun colors, and they're not too expensive, and they are easy to use to you know, decorate this thing. I also have a bunch of these Tombow brush pens, watercolor markers. They're water-based markers, I should say, and these are my favorite. I love to use these to decorate my pieces. And then there's this kind of set, which I also got at the art supply store. And with these things, you just take one of them, or you know, take whatever color or whatever you like. They have these have a really nice brush tip on the end of it, and I just use it to just bump up some extra color in some sections of these like this, and just kind of brighten it up. And also you can put some darker color right up against two sides of this plaid or checkerboard pattern we've created on here to just enhance what you did with the lifting technique. And then I use them to outline parts. I've used one of these. Let's see if I can find which one it is. I think it's, no, it's not that one. Well, I don't have it out here, but these micron pens come in not only just black, but sepia, or sepia, however you say that. Like this is a sepia pen, sepia. I guess I'm not saying it right. But anyways, I used that in the hair to do some outlining and decorating in there, because I like the softer look rather than a black pen. But then I used black on this, and I kind of went along and put a shading or shadow on some of the sides of the stars. I outlined her wings. I used a red marker and outlined the heart, and I bumped up the color a little bit in some of the green squares. And anyway, that's what I did to finish mine. You can finish yours in any way that strikes your fancy, and then you can just use those to you can put it in a frame and hang it on the wall, and it's a holiday decoration, or you can give it away to a friend as a gift. Or my favorite is you can really quickly and easily just draw a quick little drawing onto some cards. And you know, you can buy watercolor paper and then fold it in half and get it down to size, and make the right perfect size for greeting cards. And you can make your own handmade, hand-painted, and hand-colored holiday cards to send and really impress your friends and family. So give that a try. And if you enjoyed this video, if you'd please give me a like or a thumbs up, and also drop a little something in the comments if you would, to let me know how you liked it. And if you have any requests, like, you know, you want to do a Christmas tree, or you want to paint a snowman, or anything like that, because I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of these right around now, because it's the holiday season, and that is of course my favorite time of the year. Also, if you have any interest in doing a virtual paint and sip party, you know, we can't really go do those right now, but if you want to, for the holidays, get together with some of your friends and do a paint and sip party virtually using Zoom. I am putting together a package right now, and there'll be information in the description on how to do a virtual paint sip party and what I offer for that. And I'll just let you know right now, my rates are really, really reasonable, so check it out. I'd love to see your work. If you want to put something like that on my Facebook page, that link will be there in the description, as well as a whole bunch of other information. So check that all out, and please, if you didn't already subscribe, please do subscribe to my channel. And I guess I'll let that be it for now, and I'll just say see you next time.